I have people say to me they wish they were as confident as me, or like, how am I as confident as I am? Like, what's the secret? There isn't a secret really. This episode is about anxiety, and I'm going to tell you a little story about the time when I really suffered badly with anxiety. Luckily, it was short-lived, but it's very, very hard to feel confident when you also experience anxiety regularly. Now, I don't like you to use the word when you have anxiety, and that is a really, really important point, because if you've heard me speak on these podcasts before, you'll have heard me say at some point that your subconscious mind is always listening to you. So if you say, I have anxiety, then your brain is listening to that. And it's almost like it's part of your identity when it really isn't. And like when you feel anxious, that is just a state in the mind. And the states of the mind can change. Okay. It's the same with depression. You don't have depression, you are in a depressive state. Okay, it's all states of the mind, and they can all be changed, reprogrammed. So using the term I have anxiety or my anxiety is bad today is not overly good, because like I said, your subconscious brain is listening, and you don't really want to identify with that, because it sticks more than it would otherwise if you were just saying I'm feeling anxious at this moment. So this episode is dedicated to all the people out there who struggle with anxiety, because it's so tough, especially if you've got people close to you who don't struggle with it at all. It feels like you are so alone at times, because you only ever experience life in your own head. And if you have people around you who just don't understand, then it can feel very, very isolating. And so just know, when you're listening to this, you are understood, and I can relate. And actually, my period of suffering with anxiety was actually very short-lived. And I do believe that everything happens for a reason. And I knew that it would be short-lived when it happened. And for me, it was okay. I knew that I could just get through it. I'll tell you about it in a second. But for me, I could see already, like, experiencing it, whilst it wasn't fun in the slightest, I knew that it was positive, because I had already started my training as a hypnotherapist, and I just knew that it was giving me an understanding. Having that period in my life where I really struggled with it gave me that understanding of the clients that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And so when I struggled with it, it was actually right in the last term that I was teaching. And I left teaching during COVID, and my father-in-law had COVID in a very, very bad way. And so when we returned back to schools, I knew, well, it was already on the cards that I was going to be leaving teaching by that point anyway, to change careers, but it brought it very much forward when my father-in-law was part of our childcare setup, and my husband and I were still going into schools to teach. That was our job. And we weren't happy with me bringing in the extra risk. And so we decided to bring my move-in date forward and just get out as soon as possible. And at that point in time, like I only had a term left, and I really wanted to enjoy it, because, I used to see myself teaching for my whole career, and I absolutely loved it. And so whilst I knew I wanted to get out of teaching and have a career in therapy, I also wanted to really enjoy that last term, but I couldn't. I really, really struggled with anxiety. I lost my appetite in the morning. I couldn't sleep the night before. I would have not quite full-on panic attacks, but close to, before going into work. And it was just horrendous. I was in tears in the office as well, the departmental office before lessons, and even a sixth form lesson I left because I was crying. It's just really, really not nice at all. But luckily I knew that it was being in school in that high risk environment that was the trigger for it for me. And as soon as I left, that will go away. And thankfully it did. So I want to share with you a few key things about the brain, which will help you understand what is happening when you are feeling anxious. Now, I've said it before, but it's important. If this is the first episode you're listening to, it's important for me to recap a couple of key things here. Your brain is designed for survival and survival only. It doesn't care about your happiness. And so there are certain states that your mind gets into to protect you if it feels necessary. Okay. So first of all, you need to know that your brain can't tell the difference between real and imagination. So your brain can put itself in this protective state, and that is when your brain thinks it's literally in a life or death scenario. So it will flood your system with stress hormones and adrenaline because it thinks it needs to keep you alive. Now, the threat, because we've got a brain that's designed for caveman days, and there would have been real threats to our life back then. But nowadays, and there would have been real threats to our life back then. But nowadays, very rarely do we have an actual threat, but we can put ourselves in this fight or flight mode several times a day. And some people consistently live in this state because your brain can't tell the difference between real and imagination. So you can trigger this fight or flight state, this anxious state, purely with your thoughts. And that will be the case for a lot of listeners who are constantly in fight or flight mode. And I've had clients say to me recently, after experiencing literally just a couple of sessions with me, they're like, this feels totally different. How calm they are feeling now is very, very new. Social anxiety is a big one, a really, really big one, common with a lot of people I speak to, and a lot of my clients when they come to me as well. And this is a lot of the time people have low confidence in themselves. They worry about being looked at. They worry what other people are thinking about themselves. And it just holds them back in their life, stops them from living the life that they want to, having the opportunities and the experiences that they want to, even being the person that they want to be, and having a stronger connection with their friends, because they just hold themselves back because they're constantly worrying about what they look or sound like. And so I want to tell you about something called the spotlight effect, which is where we think that everybody is looking at us and judging us and noticing all of our perceived flaws when they really aren't, because everybody's thinking that about themselves. And so you don't need to worry about that, because that is the case for everybody. And so remind yourself of that next time you walk into a room full of people, or you're on the beach if you're not confident with your body or whatever. Nobody's looking at you. Just enjoy yourself in the moment if you possibly can. Okay. Now, another thing about anxiety is that your brain cannot tell the difference between real and imagination. So if you are worried about something, you're going to be worrying about that thing in advance. Let's say it's a party. You're going to be worrying about that party in advance. And you might imagine all the different things that could go wrong about that party, maybe 15 times before you get there. And then the party is going to be fine. The thing, when we actually do something, it's never as bad as the anticipation of it. And so in your mind, you've been to 16 parties. One of them was brilliant. You had a great time. 15 of them were awful. And so what happened was that every time you imagined the really bad version of the party, your brain couldn't tell the difference, triggered a load of stress hormones, that went in your stress bucket, made your day harder, possibly affected your sleep that night, and is basically just making your life harder because you are worrying and overthinking. So what you need to do is to try to practice getting out of your comfort zone, because every time you think of something that you want to do and then chicken out and decide not to in the end, what happens is your brain tells you, aha, you see, I was right to make you not do that thing. And basically your comfort zone shrinks, and it makes it harder for you to go and do that thing that you wanted to do. Whereas if you push through and do the thing that makes you a little bit scared or nervous, you will feel proud of yourself afterwards, and your comfort zone will grow. And once we've done something once, it's so much easier to do it again the second time. We can tap into our experiences and our experience of that event. And so it is much easier to do it again next time. So practice getting out of your comfort zone. When people ask me, how are you so confident? How do you, for example, how do you go live on Instagram and like literally do it without any notes and just do it spontaneously? How do you do that? And I do it because I have consistently practiced getting out of my comfort zone for years and years and years. And so my comfort zone is really, really big now. I can just do these kind of things because I feel confident. Okay. And that's all it is. Confidence is just practice getting outside of your comfort zone, and you will grow and grow and grow in confidence. Okay. Now, I just want to share a little story from one of my clients who messaged me this morning to say, now this is really bizarre actually, because I'm working with this client and she never ever mentioned that she has anxiety about driving on the motorway. But she messaged me about some other wins today, that, some other bits of progress. And then she just mentioned as well, oh, by the way, I never drive on the motorway, like really, really nervous about it. Literally never do it because I'd just be too stressed. And today I did. I don't know who it was. I think it was a brother or something. Said, are you going to go on the motorway to get home? Because it's much, much quicker. And she was like, no. And he goes, oh, it is so much quicker. And then she just did. Didn't even think about it, just went on. And we've only had 3 sessions together. And that's amazing. Like the change in her to just feel confident to do something that she never would have done before. We haven't even discussed it in hypnotherapy. She's just noticing that her nervous system, her fight or flight response, is just not being triggered like it used to be triggered all the time. She's feeling calmer, more confident, happier, so much happier, because she feels mentally and emotionally free. And so, yeah, I just, a lot of my clients actually suffer with anxiety and overthinking and low confidence, and they just are holding themselves back from doing the things that they really would want to do. And by the time they get to a discovery call with me, I ask them, like, why do you want to do this? Why do you want change? And they're just like, oh, I've just got one life and I don't want to have any regrets. And so if you're in that position where you are struggling, whether it's with anxiety or negative emotion is holding you back, then and you want to change it, then I would strongly suggest just doing something about it. Get out of your comfort zone. If it's me that you're considering, then great, or whoever it is that you're considering, send them a message and do something about it. Stop delaying, because the amount of times I've spoken to people and they start work with me and they say, I wish I'd done something about this 5 years ago, or however long it is, it's always gone on too long by the time they get to me. So if you're listening and it's not been that long, but you are not enjoying life, don't suffer any longer than you need to, because this is not you. How you are feeling now is not you. Whether it's anxiety, depression, low self-worth, low confidence, overthinking, procrastination, feeling overwhelmed or stressed or angry, all of these, they're not you. They are just patterns and programs that you have developed as coping mechanisms over the past. And if you want to understand that more, go and listen to the Subconscious Mind episode. But basically, I'm just telling you, in a nutshell, you're struggling when you don't need to be. So you can do something about it. If you wanted to book a discovery call with me, then have a little look in the show notes, click the link to do so. Come and message me on Instagram or email me, and let's have a little discussion if you would like to. So on that note, I really wish you a good day, and I just want to signpost you to a couple of other episodes actually before we finish, because if you are struggling with anxiety and you've not heard this next episode yet, then go and have a little listen now. It's called How to Boost Your Mood Away from Negativity. And another one I would recommend is The Power of Setting Intentions. Yeah, actually that would be good. And also the other one, How to Live in the Moment, or How to Live in the Now even. So thank you so much for listening. As always, I hugely appreciate your support and the messages I receive each week from like feedback and things. Really, really lovely. And also, just a reminder, if you have enjoyed this episode, please go and share it on stories. Tag me at Believe and Achieve with Jenna, and I will send you an exclusive hypnosis audio that will help you feel more joyful, more calm. So yeah, at Believe and Achieve with Jenna. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you all next week. Bye. My mission with this podcast and why I started it was to serve. And so I really hope that everything I've shared with you today and in previous episodes is serving you and helping you to change your life. It requires consistent action. It requires effort. But if you're willing to put in the work, then you can absolutely change a great deal just by listening to me and implementing my advice. However, if you're listening and you would like to work with me, then obviously I work too. I do solution-focused hypnotherapy and much more. And my program is called Change Your Life. And it's a program that I'm really proud of. So if you're interested in this and would like some more information about how it works and whether it would be right for you, then do get in touch with me via the information in the show notes. Thanks again for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to share it with a friend or stick it up on stories on Instagram and tag me at Believe and Achieve with Jenna. See you next week.